Welcome back, everybody, to the Philadelphia Eagles franchise here on Madden 22. Today we will be resuming our long-term simulation. This is the second part of our long-term simulation, which will last 3 episodes as we look to round out this series once and for all. Last episode, we went through 4 seasons. We made the Super Bowl once and lost to the Jacksonville Jaguars. So unfortunately, we have not added any more championships. We did make the playoffs all 4 seasons. We won a playoff game each year, but we were never able to win another Super Bowl ring. So we still only have 1 championship so far. The current core of guys is starting to get older, and I think we're really going to start to see some of these players regress today. Just like last episode, we're going to get through 4 seasons today, and then for the next episode, we'll do however many seasons we need to do until all of the main guys have retired. A lot of our older players are hitting some big career milestones. Both Devontae Smith and Tykeem Keon each hit 10,000 receiving yards last year, and we'll continue to see more of these guys continue to rack up big-time milestones and big-time awards and hopefully eventually enter the Hall of Fame. A word we're going to really start using today and in the next episode is legacy. We're really going to keep an eye on these players' legacy scores. I think 15,000 is the mark you need to be a Hall of Famer. I thought it used to be 10, but I think now it's 15,000. And we've got some guys who have a chance to possibly break that mark. So we're going to start here with the 2029 offseason as we look to get back into Super Bowl ways. Starting with the retirement stage, a lot of notable names here including Aaron Jones, Bradley Chubb, Joey Bosa, Derwin James, Deebo Samuel. Ezekiel Elliott is finally done. He's the NFL's all-time rushing leader. A lot of those guys were young players when we started this series, so that means our older guys might be next within the next 3 to 4 seasons. For the re-signs phase, the main 2 players we have are our 2 receivers, Devontae Smith and Tykeem Keon. Keon is back on a $123 million extension. Devontae Smith, on the other hand, would not accept our new deal. He played under the franchise tag last season, I believe, so we may have to do it again. Punter Jack Fox ends up saying no, and then other than that, the only other players I wanted to bring back were some of the older guys like Uche and Furl. Both of them would end up saying no. Fletcher Luce says yes, and he'll be back as the center for the next 2 years. I wanted to lock up Donovan Krause as the backup. He is back on a 5-year deal, and then I re-signed Jared Richmond as well. So from there, I gave Devontae Smith a franchise tag once again, so he'll be back next year on the tag. We ended up letting some other players go, most notably nickel corner Mekhi Diggins, mainly because he was asking for a little bit too much money. We only have $11 million here on the open market, not too much money to spend, and we used all of it. I wanted to bring back Jack Fox, Josh Uche, and Cleveland Furl, and I also wanted to sign a young offensive lineman who was super cheap. All 4 players ended up signing with us, so pretty successful free agency class. DeMarco Booker has a 5th-year option, possibly. He was a linebacker who we picked in the first round. I feel like we haven't totally utilized him because we've kept guys like Josh Uche around, but I think I'm going to accept it. He is a good player, and I think we'll be able to see that if we use him more. Some other notable signings around the league include C.C. Vaughn finally getting an opportunity to be a starting quarterback. He goes to the Minnesota Vikings, and then some other Westlake players, Metropolis players, former Eagles like Josh Sweat. Mekhi Diggins signs with the enemy, the Carolina Panthers, who we've had a number of postseason battles with throughout this series. So now he's with them. If you can't beat them, join them. Carolina beat us in our last playoff matchup. So in the draft, we picked an awesome defensive tackle in the first round, Mekhi Hooker. Josh Miller, hidden dev linebacker in round 2, and then former Metropolis Bulldog Mafu Vea in the 3rd round. Another former Metropolis Bulldog here, wide receiver Zach Fuller, goes number 1 overall to the Los Angeles Rams. He was not the only Metropolis first rounder. We had a few other ones as well, including Jamil Cox to Washington. Zion Hollis Sr. got picked by the Jaguars, and Ellis Hill is going to Seattle. As for the other Metropolis Bulldogs players, Prince Turk is drafted by New England, Rashard Brown Jr. is going to Buffalo, Dave Johnson to the Steelers, Nick Williams to the Lions, and Chris Swanson is going to the Green Bay Packers. So now we are in the 10th season overall, the 5th season of the long-term simulation. The team didn't change too much, some small additions to the offensive line, but for the most part, this is pretty much the same team that we brought out last year. Some of these guys, as they get older, are going to want more money per season, so I think we're going to have a harder time playing around with the cap. This is what our schedule looks like for the season. Got a number of prime times in there, including Week 17 Sunday Night Football against Xander Vanderwall and the Colts. We're going to simulate to the end of the season, and we would go 15-2. What a season here for the Philadelphia Eagles, easily getting a first-round bye in the NFC. This is by far the best we've done so far in the long-term simulation, and both of our losses were really close, so we weren't that far off from going 17-0 again. Malachi Madison had a phenomenal season. Tazewell Hubbard scored 17 times on the ground. Tykeem Keon and Devontae Smith both over 1,000 yards. Keon led in catches, Smith led in touchdowns. And then the defense was very solid as well. 20 sacks for Jabari Achabe. Holy smokes. What a season for Achabe, who really has finally broken out. We've been waiting to capitalize off of his 15.5 sack season as a rookie, and it's safe to say he's finally doing it. Champ Britton ended up winning Coach of the Year. Jabari Achabe obviously won Defensive Player of the Year. George Ham and Jabari Achabe won the Best Lineman Awards. Jabari Achabe's legacy score grew a lot this season. It's now almost 11,000, which is the highest on the team, so he's getting close to that Hall of Fame level. As I said, we have a first-round bye. We'll see who we're going to face off against here in the divisional round of the postseason, and it's going to be the Seattle Seahawks. We've played the Seahawks a couple times during the long-term simulation in the postseason, and it seems like they usually beat us. They have two 99 overall X-Factor corners, who they drafted both number 1 overall. They still have Baker Mayfield at quarterback, who is unbelievably good. He just won the MVP this year, and he has been the guy in Seattle for quite a few seasons, and he has been really good for them. This is a tough Seahawks team. I don't want to take them for granted, but we would end up winning 29-17, which means we're going back to the NFC Championship. Malachi Madison did not play all that well in this game, but everybody else did. Former Westlake Hornet Justin Bennett with 100-plus yards. Bennett has turned into a really good pro, even though he never really got a chance to play in college. So going into the NFC Championship game, we will be facing off against our division rivals, the New York Football Giants. The Giants have been pretty bad throughout this series, but they're finally, fielding wins. They still have Anthony Cortez III at quarterback, who's never been an elite player, but he's been pretty solid throughout his career. They're getting to be an older team as well. The only other player in the 90s is running back Saquon Barkley. So hopefully we can win this game, and unfortunately we would not. 35-31, the Giants are going back to the Super Bowl. Anthony Cortez III had a phenomenal game. Malachi Madison played well too, but ultimately it was not enough. Tykeem Keon with a 3-touchdown performance. Shannon Dixon, former Metropolis Bulldog, played very well too for the Giants. As we look at the Pro Bowl roster, Malachi Madison headlines the list. Former Eagles backup Maddox Gillard is there. Maddox Gillard won a Super Bowl with the Broncos in the last episode as their starting quarterback. Fletcher Luce and George Ham are both in on the offensive line. Jabari Achabe and Zaire Savage both make it on defense. So we ended up with 6 Pro Bowlers, including punter Jack Fox. The Patriots ended up beating the Giants in the Super Bowl. I was kind of rooting for the Giants. They have a lot of former Westlake guys, former Metropolis guys, but it ends up going to Mac Jones and the New England Patriots. So they win Super Bowl 65. New England finally gets their revenge over the Giants. Josh Sweat is now a Super Bowl champion. That's fun. So now we have the next offseason starting with the retirements phase. A lot of big-time running backs. Nick Chubb, Christian McCaffrey, Joe Mixon. A lot of these guys are at the very top of the all-time rushing list. Hopefully Tazewell Hubbard can get there once his career ends. We've got a number of players due for contract extensions. I really want to sign Devontae Smith to a long-term deal because we haven't been able to yet. And we finally do. He's back on a 3-year extension. CJ Thomas is next up. I want to give him more years, but he says no. That'll bring up linebacker Jarek Haig. He wants 4 years, 52. We bring him back. Offensive guard George Ham wants big money, and he says no, surprisingly. So both him and Thomas decline. Jack Fox also declines. I decided to let Osiris Young walk. That's a lot of money for a wide receiver 3, and I kind of want him to get his own opportunity to star elsewhere without guys like Smith and Keon sort of above him, overshadowing him. I wanted to sign some other older guys. They all said no. I also decided to let Tavion Smith-Gardner go. He's a good player, but we did draft Georgie Bucciarelli at tight end in the last episode, who has superstar development. I had a really tough decision with the franchise tag here, but I really want to keep all of the core guys from this series, and we cannot let them hit the open market, and that includes C.J. Thomas. So he'll be getting the tag, and we're going to try to bring back George Ham on the open market. But unsurprisingly, Ham does have a lot of bids, so we're going to have to outbid a bunch of teams going after him. We used all of our money once again, with George Ham being the main guy. We're going to try to bring back Fox and Jumbo Rocco. I need a new wide receiver 3, so I decided to go after A.J. Brown. He's on the team in real life, so it makes sense. We also need a new number 3 corner, so I wanted to sign former Metropolis Bulldog Terrell Cream. And everybody accepted other than George Ham. So our big-time offensive guard is gone in the prime of his career. I ended up trying to settle for Michael Onenwu instead. He's as good as Ham, but he's older, and he would say no. So from there, I had to settle with Ezra Cleveland, who's not all that good, but we didn't really have much of another choice. Nick Campbell is up for his 5th-year option. This is a no-brainer. He has turned into an absolute stud. I believe he's close to a 90 overall already. Certainly a player I'd like to keep around going forward. So we didn't get the high-level guard I wanted, but we do have extra money now, which is cool. Longtime Jet Matt Miller signs with the Jaguars. Osiris Young and Tavion Smith-Gardner are both reuniting in Tampa Bay. George Ham signs with the defending Super Bowl champion New England Patriots, so New England gets even better. And then Mekhi Diggins signs with Houston, his 3rd team in 3 years. That would bring us to the NFL draft, and although we did have a pretty underwhelming first-round pick, we did add a few former Metropolis players in Dustin Mack, Tony Sanchez, and Marcus Wheeler. This will be the final season with the Metropolis players being added to the league, and boy, there's a lot of them, headlined by our elite quarterback, Ron Roberson, who ended up going with the 3rd overall pick. But where is he going is the question. He is going to Atlanta. I thought Cleveland should have picked him. They just lost their QB. But instead he goes to the Falcons, who, ironically enough, have Manuel Castillo on their team, which is super funny. Neither Roberson or Castillo is the starter because they still have Loco and Wosu, who, just like Rod Roberson, throws left-handed. So I'm a little bit disappointed that both of the Metropolis quarterbacks are not starting. I'm sure Roberson will get an opportunity soon enough, but for now, he is going to be a backup in Atlanta with Manuel Castillo. Both of them are in the same quarterback room once again. We had a number of other first-rounders. Greg Washington to the Chargers, Steve Watkins to the Jets, Mike Outlaw going to the Pittsburgh Steelers, and then we had a few more later here with Brady Jackson, the big running back, going to the Denver Broncos, and Kevin Williams, an offensive tackle, going to the Kansas City Chiefs. As for the other Metropolis players sprinkled through the rest of the draft, running back Kyle Green was the first player in the 2nd round by the Dolphins. Green was not with this group of players in that draft class, but I really wanted to add him anyway. And then we had a number of our other defensive players sprinkled out to different teams. Jamar Stuckey goes to the rival Dallas Cowboys. So that'll bring us to the 11th season overall, the 6th season of a long-term sim, and the 2nd season today. I'm liking the way the team looks. The offensive line is a little bit different. No more George Ham, unfortunately. No more Tavion Smith-Gardner. No more Osiris Young. And then on defense, Cleveland Ferrell is not back. I did end up re-signing Josh Uche in the preseason, however. So hopefully this can finally be the year that our team can put it together and win a Super Bowl during the long-term simulation. We have plenty of primetime games. We play on Thanksgiving this year against the Cowboys. And we had a good season. We went 12-5. We did not win the division, though. That went to the 14-3 Cowboys. So we end up as the 5th overall seed in the NFC. We had a really good season, but we lost 3 consecutive games, 2 of which were to Dallas. We had a ton of high-scoring games throughout the year. The offense was really good. Malachi Madison was great again. Tazwell Hubbard ran for 22 touchdowns. In the receiving game, Devontae Smith led the way. But Georgie Bucciarelli, the tight end, scored 16 times. Shout out to Booch. Then on defense, Jabari Achebe, 15.5 sacks. Savage and Campbell also have double figures. And Malachi Hooker had a good rookie season, too. Everybody played well except for Zebediah Phoenix. So Malachi Madison won his 2nd career MVP. Tazwell Hubbard finished in 2nd. Hubbard won the Offensive Player of the Year. Jabari Achebe won the Defensive Player of the Year. Achebe now is a legacy score over 18,000. It has gone up by more than 10,000 in just 2 seasons today. So I think that means Jabari Achebe, if he were to retire now, is a Hall of Famer. And which is pretty cool. Our first Hall of Famer, hopefully of many more. Carolina still is 33-year-old Jalen Hurts at quarterback. I believe this is the 4th time we're playing against them in the playoffs. We're 2-1 all time. Their star linebacker, Lou Bartz-Roy, is going to be out for this game, which is a very big deal. Carolina has changed quite a bit. No more DJ Moore, no more Christian McCaffrey, but much will be the same in terms of us beating them. 28-14. Malachi Madison, 3 touchdowns. Jalen Hurts, 3 interceptions. The defense clearly played very well in today's game. I believe 2 of the interceptions were caught by C.J. Thomas, who seems to always play well when we go against Carolina. Now we're going to play the LA Rams here in the 2nd round. All the wild cards won in the NFC, and all the wild cards won in the AFC, except for the 4-seeded Raiders. So the Rams have journeyman backup Clayton Ellis as their starting quarterback. He didn't have that great of the year, but he's taken them to the divisional round. They still have Cam Akers. They have a superstar wide receiver in Joe D. Gentry, along with former Metropolis Bulldog Zach Fuller. On defense, they're led by Russell Ingram Jr. This guy's a total machine. Once he got traded to the Rams from the Titans, he's been an all-pro level player. He's the only drafted player in this series who has a higher legacy score than Jabari Achebe at over 19,000. And it's crazy that both Ingram and Achebe play next to each other in college as opposite starting defensive ends. So we're going to simulate to the NFC Championship game, and we win 52-20. Holy hell, offense. Malachi Madison played great, scoring 4 touchdowns, 165 yards and 2 touchdowns for Tazwell Hubbard. So we are back in the NFC Championship yet again with another opportunity to go to the Super Bowl. The only team standing in our way is the 9-8, 7th-seeded Atlanta Falcons. In the AFC, it's the Raiders, who are the 4th seed, and the 7th-seeded Bengals. So pretty much all the lower seeds are winning games this year. We know the Falcons' quarterback room. They have Ron Roberson and Manuel Castillo, both backing up Loco Onwosu, who hasn't been outstanding. His best years actually came when he was young, but he's still the guy here, and he's led them to the NFC Championship. They have former Eagle Ford Chavez, along with a number of their other draft picks throughout this series, such as Orlando Higgins Jr. and Salem Newport. And we ended up losing 38-31 despite a big comeback in the fourth quarter. Loco Onwosu played very well. Tazwell Hubbard scored 3 times. Orlando Higgins Jr. was unreal. So we lose in the NFC Championship yet again. I feel like we are turning into the Green Bay Packers in the sense that we got our 1 Super Bowl ring early, and now we just keep losing early in the playoffs. In the Pro Bowl, we had Malachi Madison, Tazwell Hubbard, Georgie Bucciarelli, Jabari Achebe, and CJ Thomas, along with Edmund Orient. So once again, we have 6 Pro Bowlers, and the Super Bowl is between the 2 7 seeds, the Bengals and the Falcons. Who would have thunk it? And it ends up being the Atlanta Falcons who win the Super Bowl. So Loco Onwosu is a Super Bowl champion, leading Atlanta to victory. And that means both Rod Roberson and Manuel Castillo have rings. Rod Roberson graduated high school 6 years ago, and he's won 4 championships since then. 3 in college and now 1 Super Bowl. Here are the retirements, starting with Jack Hoff retiring as a Super Bowl champion for the Falcons. Kadarius Franklin retires. Dak Prescott retires. Deshaun Elliott retires. George Kittle is in here. So again, a lot of the young guys here. Even we're starting to see drafted players like Kadarius Franklin calling it a career. I do want to shout out our former players as they retire, and Deshaun Elliott was here for a few years. We signed him in the very first offseason of the series, and he was really good for us for 3 seasons. Then he's bounced around with Minnesota and the Chargers since then. So shout out to Deshaun Elliott for being a good Eagle. That'll bring us to the re-sign phase. We have pretty much our whole starting secondary, along with Zaire Savage in here. So a large chunk of the defense is due for new deals. That starts with CJ Thomas. We bring him back for 1 year, nearly $20 million. Nehemiah Richardson's an interesting case because he has regressed really quickly, which is a surprise because he at one point was 99 in every archetype. I thought he was going to regress slower because of that, and I had talked about that in the last episode, but he's regressing faster than anybody. We would bring him back. I'm not letting him go just because he's regressing quickly. Joko Onwosu is back. Zaire Savage finally has superstar development. That is long overdue. I decided to let DeMarco Booker go. I think he's a good player, but that's just too much money. Jack Fox, I don't want going to any other team. I ended up way overpaying for him this year, and he is going to stick around. Ifo Nobo Jumbo Roko I thought about, but I want to make sure I can pay Chandler Bednarik. He hasn't really gotten a big opportunity to start, but I think he will now, especially with DeMarco Booker gone. Now I know I have enough money for Ifo, but he still says no, so I guess he's going to hit the open market anyway. Free agency, we again used all of our money up. It's a pretty talented free agency class in here. We ended up just going after a couple of our former linemen with Ifo Nobo Jamba Roko and Fletcher Luce. Unfortunately, Luce declined, so we were only able to get Jumbo Roko back on the team. As for the rest of free agency, Fletcher Luce's new home is the New Orleans Saints. DeMarco Booker signs with the Houston Texans, teaming up with Mekhi Diggins. We picked a pretty good offensive tackle in the first round with Darren Stanley, who has hit in development. Then I drafted this wide receiver, Emmanuel Ali, who also has hit in dev. The only reason why I drafted Ali over some of the other receivers is that he has a cool name. And clearly it worked out because he looks really good. This is the lineup for the 3rd season today, the 7th season of the long-term sim, and the 12th season overall. The offensive line looks a lot different. We've had to, not use as much money on certain areas, and the offensive line has kind of taken a hit because of that, which is unfortunate. But, as I've said, I really want to be able to maintain this core. We start the year in Atlanta against the defending Super Bowl champion Falcons, so I guess that's interesting. We're going to simulate now to the end of the season. Hopefully we can have another great season. And we end up going 11-6, which once again does not win the division. That actually goes to the Washington football team, who we just beat last week in Week 18. I think Dallas won 14 games last year, and this year they won 2. I guess Dak Prescott really was that important to them. Tazewell Hubbard leads the way with 22 rushing touchdowns. Tykeem Keon had another great season, 1,300 yards, which led the squad. And then defensively, another great year for the pass rush. 16 sacks for Achabe, 13 for Zaire Savage, and 3 interceptions for Joko Onwusu. For a second straight year, Tazewell Hubbard finished second in the MVP voting, only behind his former high school teammate, CeCe Vaughn. Hubbard does win the Offensive Player of the Year award along with the best running back. His legacy score is now over 12,000, so he's getting close to being a Hall of Famer. This is what the playoff bracket looks like. We are the 6th seed this year, facing off against our division rivals, the Washington football team. And they've actually got a really fun squad with them. I think this is the first time they've made the playoffs. They still have Joe Kilpatrick, but he's no longer their starter. They replaced him with Alex Hayden, who hasn't been all that good for them so far. They have a number of players we know, including Malik Bostic II, Lewis Reed and Jamil Cox from Metropolis, Kemi Membenigba from Metropolis. They have both of the Toussaint twins, which is pretty cool. And then even down the board, they have a number of former Eagles as well, with JT DeMarco and Hannibal Savage. So they've got a bunch of guys we know from Westlake, from Metropolis, and from this team. We end up beating them 42-31. Their offense played well, but our offense played a little bit better. Although Malachi Madison was pretty unimpressive, Tazewell Hubbard scored 4 rushing touchdowns. Not as much as the 6 he had a few years ago in the wildcard round against the New Orleans Saints. So we have now won a playoff game in 10 straight seasons, but we only have 1 ring to show for it. We're going to rematch with the LA Rams here in the second round. We beat the Rams last year, and we're looking to do it again. They've added defensive tackle Vlad Van Vector. They have a new starting quarterback in Lance Brooks, who actually had a really good season for them. In his first year as a starter, he played very, very well. Hopefully we can get back into an NFC Championship appearance for a 3rd straight year, and we do, but barely. 21-14. Not a lot of offense today. Lance Brooks really struggled. It was definitely our defense who won the game, although Tykeem Keon was very good offensively. But the defense played very well. We got to the quarterback a lot. We had a few interceptions from our 2 corners, Thomas and Richardson. So in the NFC Championship, we faced off against the 7th-seeded Vikings, the 6th and 7th seed, back in the NFC Championship. The Vikings are led by the MVP winner, CeCe Vaughn. He's finally gotten an opportunity to start, and he's been really, really good. We've lost the NFC Championship game twice today. I am ready to be hurt again. We literally are the Green Bay Packers, who always lose in the NFC Championship game, so I'm fully prepared to lose this game and not make the Super Bowl. But not so fast. We scored 44 points against the Vikings. We win 44-21. Malachi Madison throws for 5 touchdowns, and we are headed to our 3rd Super Bowl of the series. We won Super Bowl 60 against the Colts. We lost Super Bowl 62 against the Jacksonville Jaguars, and we are back in Super Bowl 67. Obviously, we aren't going to have any Pro Bowlers because they are playing in the Super Bowl, but I still want to show the Pro Bowl rosters. Kemi Membenigba made it for Washington. That's pretty cool. A couple former Metropolis tight ends, O'Shane Yakabuti and Tavion Smith-Gardner. George Ham has made it, I think, every year since he signed with New England. He's still really good for them, which I guess is cool. In the Super Bowl, we will be facing off against, drumroll please, the Baltimore Ravens, who have been really good for a large chunk of this series, but I don't think they've made the Super Bowl at all during the long-term simulation. The Ravens are the number 5 seed in the AFC. They only have 1 player over 90 overall, and that player is 35-year-old Lamar Jackson, who is still an awesome player. But I think we're a better team than the Baltimore Ravens, and we should win this game. But if I know anything about this team during the long-term simulation, don't get my hopes up, because Lamar Jackson's really good. The Ravens made it here for a reason. So already, it's time for the moment of truth. Did we win our 2nd Super Bowl? We did! 27-7. The Eagles are Super Bowl 67 champions, and we beat the Ravens by a lot. It wasn't even all that close. Malachi Madison, 2 touchdowns. Very efficient game for him. Certainly worthy of Super Bowl MVP. Devontae Smith scores twice. He was our leading receiver. The defense was really good today. A number of guys got to the quarterback. Zebediah Phoenix didn't miss a kick like he normally does in a championship game. So we have won our second Super Bowl of the series. Malachi Madison adds another Super Bowl MVP. We won Super Bowl 60 in 2025, and it took us another 7 seasons here in the long-term sim, but we finally have done it. I'm so happy this core got another ring, but as you can see, they're all starting to age. Everybody for the actual series itself is now over the age of 30. So as it stands now, Jabari Altuve and Tazewell Hubbard are both in the Hall of Fame, and we've got a number of guys really close who could get it within the next few seasons. So now we're going to the 4th and final season of the day. Here's the retirement stage, headlined by Baker Mayfield calling it a career. Akeem Davis-Gaither. Maurice Rodgers retires with the Bucks. Clelin Ferrell is retiring after 14 seasons. He's been a great defensive lineman for us since we acquired him in the very first offseason of the series. And joining him is Josh Uche after 13 years. We acquired him in that same offseason we got Clelin Ferrell. Both of those guys have been really good for this team as phenomenal role players on defense. Josh Sweat also retired. I'm pretty sure he tore his bicep as he was signing his retirement papers. That'll now bring us to the re-signings phase. We have $130 million to spend and a lot of guys to spend it on. A huge chunk of our core is due for contract extensions, including quarterback Malachi Madison. His 7-year, $200+ million deal is up. We're obviously not letting him go anywhere. He re-signs on a 2-year deal for $88 million. Jabari Altuve cannot go anywhere at all. He's back for another 2 years. CJ Thomas played on the franchise tag last year. I'd rather not worry about that, and we don't because he accepts. Zebediah Phoenix's 7-year deal is also up. We bring him back for $8 million. I know it's a lot for a kicker, but it's Zebediah Phoenix. Edmund Orient does not accept, so he's going to be a free agent. Nehemiah Richardson is continuing to fall really hard. He's only an 88 overall now, but I still want to keep him around. I want him to retire as an Eagle. He accepts. And then I don't normally pay tight ends this type of money, but Georgie Bucciarelli has been really good, so we're going to bring him back as well. I'm going to franchise tag Edmund Orient, and we're going to let Nick Campbell walk. He wants $20 million, and I just don't have that type of money to spend. I'd love to bring back Nick Campbell. I think he's a total beast, but we do have a few other really good defensive linemen, so I think we'll be able to manage without him. The free agency class is pretty solid. Nick Campbell's actually the best player here. We have negative $10 million, so long story short, we're not going to be able to spend any money at all. So obviously we didn't sign anybody because we couldn't. As for the rest of the league, Manuel Castillo signs as a backup with the Steelers. When is he going to get an opportunity to start? Shannon Dixon to the Broncos. Machado Yamaguchi's back in our division. He signs for $64 million with the Washington football team, who seem to always be stealing our players. Nick Campbell signs with the Colts, so he's teaming up with Xander Vanderwall for big money. This I found pretty cool. Patrick Surtain signs with the Dolphins, where his dad played at a high level for a number of seasons, so that's pretty cool. As for the NFL draft, we have a few needs on our roster, so I drafted for need, and that proved to be a big mistake. None of our rookies are good. Our first rounders are 63 overall. The number one rule of drafting is not to draft for need. We did that, and we regret it because none of our rookies are good. The Cowboys have the number one overall pick. They picked their new quarterback to replace Dak Prescott, who retired a couple of seasons ago. And look at this. The London Monarchs are now in our league. Take a wild guess at who relocated. It was the Chargers. So now London plays in the AFC West. How geographically perfect. That'll bring us to Season 8 of the long-term sim, the 4th and final season today, and the 13th season overall. We're in 85 overall. The team has fallen off a little bit. The offensive line's pretty bad. We have some questionable starters at linebacker. Certainly not the team we once were, but I think we're good enough to win a Super Bowl because a lot of the other really good teams are also regressing because all of the elite talent that entered the league during our draft classes, they're regressing on other teams too as much as they are for us. We ended up going 10-7, which gets us a wild card spot, but the big thing I noticed here on the activities bar, one last hurrah. That means somebody's probably retiring. The first big piece of our core is old enough to retire. So who could it be? The oldest players on our team are Devontae Smith and Zebediah Phoenix. 34 years old is not old for a kicker, so I'm assuming it's probably going to be Devontae Smith, and that's exactly who it is. So it looks like this might be the end of the road for Devontae Smith. He was our rookie at the start of this series, and now he's the old guy planning to retire after this postseason run. He hasn't really lost a step. He's still at 99 overall, and he finished second in the NFL in receiving yards this year. So he hasn't gotten worse at all for the most part. So the team ended up going 10-7, which only gets us a wild card spot. Washington ended up winning the division, but at least we beat the London Monarchs. Yeah. Malachi Madison had a pretty good season once again. Tazewell Hubbard, 1,300 yards and 15 touchdowns. As we said earlier, Devontae Smith was unreal this year. Tykeem Keon also over 1,000 yards. And then the defense was quite solid too. 15 more sacks for Jabari Achabe, 6 interceptions for Dustin Mack, 4 for Nehemiah Richardson, and Zebediah Phoenix had a great season as well. So we ended up as the 5 seed as we look at the playoff bracket. The London Monarchs have a number 1 seed in the AFC. Once the Chargers are no longer the Chargers, they become good. Why does that actually kind of make sense? So Washington is pretty much the same team as last year. Other than that, they added Machado Yamaguchi, another former Eagle. It's not like they already have 12. Pierre Clements, also a former Eagle, by the way. So we're going to simulate past this game. Hopefully we can beat the Washington Eagles. And we do, but barely, in overtime, 26-20. We have now won a playoff game in 11 straight seasons. The last 3 seasons of the actual series, and all 8 years in the long-term sim. That's got to be like a record. There's no way a team has ever won a playoff game in 11 straight years. The defense played very well. We had a bunch of interceptions, and now we're playing against the 9-8 Seattle Seahawks in the second round of the playoffs. We're continuing to gain morale from Devontae Smith's retirement, and as we get guys retiring, I think that'll continue to boost morale throughout the playoffs, which is honestly kind of the good thing. So the Seahawks are the 6th seed. We actually get to play at home for this game. All the wild cards in the NFC won again. Seattle is a new quarterback with Lloyd Norton. Eventually, Baker Mayfield got old and they moved on. I think they actually had Kyler Murray for a year, and now they had this Norton guy. Other than that, the team is pretty much the same as what it used to be. We made the NFC Championship all 3 seasons today. Can we go 4 for 4? We would not, losing to Seattle 24-20. So the Seahawks upset the Eagles. Lloyd Norton played decent enough. Malachi Madison was okay. And what likely was his final game, Devontae Smith led the team in receiving, 6 catches, 68 yards. Zaire Savage tried to carry with 3 sacks, but it's not enough. So the 2 lowest seeds are playing in the NFC Championship, and the 2 highest seeds are playing in the AFC Championship. I wasn't sure if I wanted to click the one last hurrah thing. I think there's a better chance he stays if I don't click it, but I still clicked it anyway, and as you can see here, they're asking Devontae Smith what he's going to do. He doesn't say he's going to retire. He's actually unsure about his future, so maybe we'll get Devontae Smith back for 1 more year, hopefully, fingers crossed. In the Pro Bowl, we had Tazewell Hubbard, Devontae Smith, bunch of former Metropolis players here, which is pretty cool. George Ham made it again for New England. Zaire Savage is back in once again. And Nehemiah Richardson is a Pro Bowler. This is relevant because he has never made the Pro Bowl before. Nehemiah Richardson's 34 years old. He's been in the league 12 years. He's been awesome, but he's never made the Pro Bowl until now. Finally, I have been waiting for him to get into Pro Bowl, and he's done it, along with Zebediah Phoenix as well. So I think we ended up with 5 Pro Bowlers this year. And the London goddamn Monarchs won the Super Bowl. It's so fitting that the Chargers are like the epitome of disappointment. Right when they leave Los Angeles, they win the Super Bowl. The Chargers, or should I say the Monarchs, still have Justin Herbert at quarterback, which is funny because at the end of the actual series, we were talking about them replacing him. So that's going to wrap up the episode. We're another 4 seasons in. We've added a Super Bowl championship, and we have a bunch of guys who look to be Hall of Famers. Achabe, Hubbard, and Madison are for sure going to the Hall of Fame. We've got a number of guys close behind as well. We've got a lot of players reaching some big-time career milestones. Tazewell Hubbard's going to be atop the rushing all-time list soon. Devontae Smith is currently 8th all-time in receiving yards, although he might not be there for long. Tykeem Keon is right on his tail. Jabari Achabe at 136 sacks. He very well could finish in the top 10 in that statistic by the end of his career. So next episode will be the series finale. We're going to see all of these guys ride into the sunset. I think we're still good enough to win some championships, but next episode won't be as much focused on the long-term simulation and more so reflecting on all of these players as they finish their careers and retire. I hope everybody enjoyed the episode. Make sure to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel if you are new. Peace out.